Hi, I'm Jodie, a relationship and sex therapist based in Southern California, and today we are going to continue our Love Island reaction series by reviewing the first After Sun episode. This is coming right after episodes 9 and 10. See my last videos to kind of get updated on where we're at. This is basically like kind of like what I'm doing. It's a review of what's happening. It's got the hosts Sierra Miller and Tevi Pessoa, who supposedly are from the show Summer House, which I have not watched that, but I mean, I love a lot of the different reality shows, so I wouldn't be surprised if I also liked it. There's just too many to watch. One note on them, I mean, they're both stunning and beautiful and exciting to listen to. Again, I said this about the cast already with just Love Island in general, and I think just where the world has gone, but I love seeing people from diverse backgrounds. And again, when I mean that, I'm not only talking about race and skin color, I'm also talking about culturally. I don't even know what the right term would be, but like Tevi, for example, is, fully tatted up. Not only like tatted up, like they're not feminine tattoos. Like they're more like of course, there is a femininity to them, but they're like goth, punk, edgy. And I love to kind of see that kind of representation, that those things can still be adding to the image of a woman. And she's still beautiful, she's wearing dresses, it's like it's her style. I love those kind of things. I don't know how many of you may know this, but I mean, I'm originally from New England, and not that we don't have some diversity there, especially if you're like in the cities and sometimes outside, but part of the reason I moved out to California was just to be like more around diversity. Life is not so fun when it's monotonous. You don't want to do the same thing every day, you don't want to eat the same thing every day, you want to see the same things every day. I love being around diversity because it also just helps you to grow. But again, well, getting back to actually Love Island topics here, basically what they did was we officially have our first two islanders that left the villa. So we had Sean was our first one that came off. So we had an interview with Sean, then we went to Bea, and then we had one where they were together. Of course, this is where it shows the behind the scenes. They get to their hotel room, they finally get their phones back, get to see all the things that are said about them, social media, who's been DMing them, all these kind of things. I really like to see that component of like, how does this show translate into real life? You're kind of in this bubble, and so you don't really know what's going on. You're not influenced. You can't talk to your friends and your family on what they think about people you're meeting or what happened or how you're behaving or anything like that. When Sean got his, one thing, first of all, I called his mom, he also called his sister separately. The call with his mom was not surprising at all. I've said this time and time again that I think Sean has been one of the more mature men on the show, and it showed. The way that his mom was vulnerable, soft, emotionally in tune. I just loved everything about their interaction. I could not believe that she was his mom because she looks amazing and young. And like, of course, your brain's like, wait, how? I would have never guessed that that was his mom. And same thing with the sister. Like the sister was very supportive and it seemed like they had a really close relationship. Those are always green flags when you have close relationships with like female family members or family members in general. That's definitely something with partners. I know you don't get to see that in the villa, but you can maybe get some information about how they talk about their family. Again, not all of us can control if we've had positive relationships with our family, but you can hear it in how we're talking about respect and things like that towards family members, that ones that deserve it, and still about even if they don't, how do we navigate those kind of things. But again, I loved hearing and watching those phone calls. Sean got a lot of DM, people that were interested in him. Of course, this is always funny how it works, right? All the exes come out of the woodwork and try to hit you up again and whatever. One of the things that was a topic for him was that the mayor of the town that he's a law enforcement officer in posted something that wasn't so great about him and kind of making it feel like he was abandoning like his work and his family. And that was a topic of conversation. And I don't think this is uncommon knowledge, but I think this is just an example of some of one, just in general society, like not valuing us taking care of ourselves, but especially unfortunately jobs like this. Law enforcement still is a job that, yeah, has great benefits. I was married in the past for a short time to a police officer and who's also in the military. And unfortunately, it's still not a career path that really promotes actually taking care of yourself. Or they'll say it, but then there'll be like these backhanded things of like, you don't get time off. Of course, safety and things like that never end. So there's always hours to work and somebody has to work them. But there's a lot of like these kind of underlying tones, like you working in mental health, you have to be really careful on diagnoses you give them because it might threaten their career path rather than being understandable. But majority of the people that I'm seeing, and there's been times I've had to be careful with diagnoses I'm giving them, but it doesn't mean that something really really bad is going to happen. It's just the thing becomes, oh, it's too much of a risk. No. Not that that was, the point of this with Sean, but it was just this kind of overall culture around these kind of jobs that's just really sad because you want to help people. And, therapists, it's the same thing. You're helping people, but there's really not a lot of understanding if you're struggling with something, especially with your license. There can be some judgment on those things or repercussions if you make a mistake, and then your career could be, kind of down the toilet as well. I really liked that it kind of highlighted that. I'm sad that Sean had to go through that experience, and especially he was saying he was very transparent with them. He didn't lie. He asked for unpaid leave. He's let them know, hey, I just really want to live my life and have a good time, and I'm not leaving my job, and thanks so much. And was even saying he's got commendations and awards before he left. Kind of feel like they're kind of turning on him, or at least the mayor was. I don't want to speak for the entire department, but that was really sad. And so I think, just to bring it into like the bigger world, like this is something that I will see kind of often for certain career paths, and it's just sad. They got a little bit of information about Bea, showed what happened there. She talked a little bit about like fear of her being like a diversity hire, basically, and just being on the show for that reason. And I loved the reframe of like, no, I'm just a hot mama, basically, that happens to also be disabled. And again, I love that reframe. And at the same time, how great it was for her to be represented on this season and for her to be a role model for all these other people who have gone through these things or even are going through them right now and still finding that hope to see someone who is thriving in life the way that she is, even with her disability. It just changes things. It doesn't become that we are less than. So I really loved that topic. It was funny to see Bea talk with one of her best friends about Gabrielle. Of course, you know my opinion. Gabrielle kind of a little bit fuckboy vibes. I've been saying this a couple episodes now. Friend kind of felt the same. Like, we don't really care for him. He's kind of moving quickly. You could kind of see Bea kind of defending that. I think this is where you're like, okay, what side is it? Is it maturity, where we're gonna not talk bad about somebody and we're gonna try to understand them while also saying, maybe, you can either accept that or try to move on and maybe it's not for me? Or is this the, hey, like we can't see the red flags and are kind of continuing in an unhealthy, maybe toxic kind of pattern that's going to actually breed a lot of insecurity? So I'm not gonna lie, for me, it was hitting a little bit more on the insecurity side, but I think Bea was really speaking about how people didn't really get to see really how much of a caring person that Gabrielle is. And of course, they're having so many more interactions than we see on the show. And I think time will tell. I'll speak a little bit more about this in the next episode. Bea was definitely on the, I still interested in Gabriel. I still want to have something with Gabrielle. I don't want him to leave to be with me or anything. I still want him to have his full experience, which showed maturity. But again, are they going to be a good fit, or is anything going to translate out? Chances are probably not. However, who knows what could happen? Bea did also talk about something that she mentioned during the show about the femininity piece. As she is an athlete. She's, I don't know what the right term would be to use, but a little more kind of, okay, maybe tomboy would be the correct term. Like, speaks a little bit more in like a tomboy way, and can kind of hang with the guys kind of behavior, which again, nothing wrong with that. But this has been something like in our culture of like, do men want femininity? What does femininity look like? It's a softer voice. It's not swearing. If anyone ever knows me, I swear all the time, right? That's just who I am. So I can relate to her quite a bit on that. And just the struggle there, and also at times feeling like she was not maybe kind of in the group with the girls at times because I think she said like, oh, they'd be talking about High School Musical and I didn't watch that. Whether that because there was an age difference or just, I had brothers. Like I'm not very feminine. That wasn't something that I was really interested in. Girl, same. That was also because I was not of that generation, but also there was nothing, I'm not a fan of musicals. I might have watched it just because like at some point that I have the opportunity just because people had watched it and it was popular, so I want to know what's going on and be in. I could definitely relate to her on that of, can you hang with the girls, but then can you hang with the guys? And then if you're hanging with the guys but you were attracted to guys, that was something that came up that her friend kind of gave her a heads up on. A lot of people online being like, assuming or thinking that Bea's actually attracted to women. So sometimes kind of stereotypes or misconceptions, and with these kind of things I'm always like, yes, those things are messed up and they're wrong and they kind of still exist. And how do we navigate that? We can want the world to change. Are they going to change? Also, are they going to change in a time that actually works for us? These kind of social changes take a really long time. So how do you balance that? But that could be something maybe she's looking for either with Gabrielle or somebody else. So somebody that really is strong in his own masculinity and can be with a woman who's able to kind of hold her own a little bit, be a little sassy, lean into the competitiveness, right? If she beats you at sports or like she's achieving more, are you going to be intimidated by these kind of things? So I really loved these conversations. And so like basically most of the things in the show was like, yep, Talked about that earlier, called that. So really kind of they're hitting a lot of the moments like I imagine that they would. And then they had the two, Sean and Bea, come out for the interview together. So it was interesting. They kind of were both in agreement, as I've been saying, like Melanie's doing a little bit too much. She definitely needs to tap into her inner emotional security. Obviously we had Bea who kind of had a little bit of a tiff with Melanie, just over kind of highlighting some things, some like maybe missed behaviors or like things that were coming off the rest of the group. So I'm not surprised to hear that about her, but also, you know, again, Sean kind of left early, but like before a lot of the drama. But I mean, Bea's seeing all this drama between Melanie and Sincere, and it is quite a bit. Bea finally talked about how Sean has a child already, and you know, her comment was like, there's this internal voice that says, hey, I beat teen pregnancy, you know, do I really want to be a stepmom? And I think that, again, this is one of those topics that can feel so uncomfortable to talk about, but I think a lot of people can relate to that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I'm sure maybe Sean either maybe they planned the child, maybe they didn't, but it doesn't mean they don't love that child anymore. But it is a lot to take on, right? And you really want people that are fully invested. And there is a lot of pressure on girls and women specifically to be the primary driver of preventing pregnancy. And so I think that relates to that kind of comment of, hey, I was really careful so that I want it to be my choice when I bring a child in. But I also like that she was saying, like, it's not necessarily that she would have closed the door on it. It's just, you know, for the right person that maybe she would consider being a stepmom. But she kind of was saying like she wasn't even sure if she wanted kids at all. And so you definitely do want to take that in consideration. You want to judge somebody for having a child, but you also want to be really honest, because that child is going to be there and they're going to be a big, important part of your life. And we don't want those kids being traumatized, being like, hey, I don't even want you around. You're competing with my parent, you know, for attention. But it was nice that they kind of finally had like a little conversation about that, because that was something that she admitted she was not sharing in the villa, which made it feel a little more fake to, I would say, the viewers, and especially me, when she was talking to Sean about what happened. They were rooting for Anaya and KC, which they've been pretty stable, Hayda and Zach, which they've been pretty stable. They actually did say that they were also rooting for Sincere and Soul, which again, a little, not shady, but like on the kind of, ooh, here's the tea side. But at the same time, you know, not surprising, because there's been so much drama with Sincere and Melanie. They were just really feeling, at least maybe not so much Sean, but definitely Bea can feel the chemistry between Soul and Sincere, which I think even all the viewers can kind of see that too. And they were doubting Trinity and Bryce. Not surprising. Trinity and Bryce have been showing a little bit of cracks. They've been kind of on, off. They kind of were off, and then they would come back and were kind of stable. And I don't really know about them either. We just came off the him pulling Kata for a chat thing. So, ooh, what's going to happen with that? First After Sun, I don't normally watch these kind of things, but I actually really enjoyed it. Of course, you get some of the cringy nature of it feeling kind of live at times, but overall, I really enjoyed it, and see you in the next one.